What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Your guys, Derek and Cody, with you as always. Guys, we're continuing the Colts positional breakdown. This time, the running backs. We got a lot to talk about with the running backs in this group. Cody, we got to talk about the man, probably maybe the best player potentially on this team, and that is running back Jonathan Taylor. I mean, you just look back at what Jonathan Taylor has been for the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, it warrants every bit of excitement that Colts staff was feeling the moment that they were able to trade up in the second round to go get him. And it makes you seriously wonder to this day still how so many people let this guy slip right through their fingers. And you think of how, wasn't he like the fourth running back taken in the 2020 draft, Cody, or something like that?
Yeah, he was not. I mean, because it was Clyde Edwards-Helaire, obviously.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire, DeAndre Swift. And then it was somebody else. I couldn't remember. I'm pretty sure somebody went before him.
Was J.K. Dobbins before or after him?
I think he was before, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Well, regardless,
I would imagine so. I mean, in fairness, in fairness to that, I would have said at that time J.K. Dobbins was the only person that I would have taken over Jonathan Taylor at that time. That's me personally. It's the only one. But anyways, now that we know the backstory, Jonathan Taylor got that contract extension in the off season. We know the whole drama that was going on there, but the sides are equally happy with each other now and no issues there. And, Jonathan Taylor has had one rushing title under his belt since joining the Indianapolis Colts and is hoping to have another here in 2024 as the season rolls along. I mean, Cody, what do you not love about Jonathan Taylor, man? I mean, you couldn't ask for a better running back in any kind of system, really, than Jonathan Taylor at this point. He's at the top, man.
I think, week 18 showed you all you need to know about Jonathan Taylor. That dude took over that game. Not only did he take over that game, he came back after being listed as doubtful in that game and still continued to perform at a very high level. And, that massive touchdown he had, late in that game, that was so critical for Indianapolis at that point. And just showed you again that, this dude has it. Like, he's not slowing down. He hasn't hit a wall. He is still that electric player that anytime he gets his hands on the football, he can take it to the house. Like, he is just an electric type of player. Now, when you're talking about what don't you like, the only thing I can say is the fact that he hasn't been on the field as much as he has, in years previous due to just different things. You mentioned, the contract. We know about the injuries that he's kind of faced the last couple of years. So, he just needs to stay on the field and stay healthy. That's the biggest thing for Jonathan Taylor, because when he's on the field, no question, he's one of the best running backs in all of the NFL. And even last year, in only 10 games, Derek, he had, just a hair under 750 rushing yards and 7 rushing touchdowns. So, this dude still's got it. And I don't think it's going away anytime soon. He is still, one of the best backs in football for good reason. And you think if he can stay on the field for all 18 games, no doubt he's got as good a chance as anybody to be, the rushing champion. He's only a couple seasons removed when he played in all those 17 games, Derek, where he had, by a wide margin, the rushing title, over 1,800 rushing yards. And, Jonathan Taylor just absolutely phenomenal in that, in that season for Indianapolis. And in a season, honestly, where the Colts had some ups and downs with their passing game. But Jonathan Taylor continued to stay consistent and was by far and away the best player on that offense that year. So, so Jonathan Taylor certainly at any point, Derek, can beat a defense. And so I think that's just so helpful to Anthony Richardson and your offense in general, is just knowing that if this guy's on the field, he is that electric type of running back, right? And that, a guy that can do a little bit of everything. So, Yeah, I love Jonathan Taylor. He's got the prototypical size that you're looking for in a running back. And obviously, we know the dude, even though he's, 220, he still can burn
Oh
people.
yeah,
Like, he's still got that elite speed. He's just one of those guys that he's a very rare type of talent. Actually, he's more like 225, Derek. So, but he's got a lot of, those things that you like, the physical tools off the chart. And then obviously we talk about just him as a person and everything like that. Great locker room fit for Indy. And, just it basically is, until Anthony Richardson can show that he is the guy. I mean, it is Jonathan Taylor's offense. Let's be honest. The offense flows through Jonathan Taylor as it should, right? He's been the most proven guy, been an all pro type of player. And, when he's on the field, I mean, you clearly see how much he changes your offense. No question.
absolutely. I mean, you said it. He's the complete package. I mean, he's got the size, he's got the speed, the athletic ability, the ability to catch out of the backfield, to be able the ability to drag people, like multiple people, to wherever he wants, but at the same time burn past anyone. I mean, he's almost as fast as anybody else out there on the field. So I mean, again, this is a guy that does everything for you. And toe to toe, there is not 5 running backs better than Jonathan Taylor. I mean, you can argue the guys like CMC, and maybe even throw a Nick Chubb's name in there. But when you talk about like the guys who are the most complete of them all, I mean, Jonathan Taylor's right up there with you. And if he's 100% healthy, I mean, even if he's not 100% healthy and he's just playing still, I mean, he can go up there and get you the numbers that almost CMC is. Maybe not from a receiving perspective, but from a rushing perspective, Jonathan Taylor can do that in plenty of time. And like you said, with that last game in week 18, no question that even when he was unhealthy in that game, still was running past people and just running through dudes and just making it look easy. The only thing that keeps Jonathan Taylor from dominating is his own injury history, right? So hopefully this year he is able to stay on the field. Hopefully he's able to take care of himself. Hopefully he's able to keep those snaps and be able to stay healthy and do good things, because this offense definitely needs Jonathan Taylor out there in order to be at the best level of competition for him. So no doubt Jonathan Taylor, all-star, one of the best players in the National Football League when he is healthy. But we got to move on. We have a couple other guys to mention here when it comes to the running backs, and we kind of talk about the number 2 running back right now, and that is believed to be running back Trey Sermon, product of The Ohio State University, was drafted in 2021, spent a little time with 49ers and the Eagles, and then, ended up coming to Indianapolis and has been trying to make a home for himself, Cody, ever since he got into the league. Didn't get a whole lot of chances last year, but we did see a couple times last year where Trey Sermon had himself a couple of good games when the Indianapolis Colts were very injury-ridden in the running back room. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on Trey Sermon? Do you think that he deserves to be RB2 in this system, or do you think that he's got some more competition coming his way?
Well, I definitely think there's some other guys that could definitely challenge for some playing time, but I think right now when you look at Trey Sermon, I think you can say far and away out of all the backs you probably have on your roster vying for that number 2 running back one, you probably feel the strongest about Trey Sermon based off of the talent, ability, obviously what he did at Ohio State, and the fact that he got taken as early as he did in the top 3 rounds, the fact that he showed some things last year in very, very limited action. I mean, Derek, when you look at it, I mean, he obviously the one game that stands out to you is that Pittsburgh game where he had 17 carries, averaged over 5 yards per attempt for 88 yards in that game. But other than that, really didn't get a ton of run, when it came to it, because obviously Jonathan Taylor getting back healthy, you still had Zach Moss. So like Trey Sermon really got reduced to that number 3 role, maybe even number 4 at times, kind of splitting time with Tyler Goodson at times too. But I do think Trey Sermon is kind of crazy how you let go. You had a guy in Zach Moss who was kind of a cast off, if you will, a former high round pick that didn't really translate, didn't really work out for the team that drafted him. He gets, traded to Indianapolis, obviously. We know last year the kind of season that he had, fantastic for Zach Moss. And now it's kind of a similar situation, albeit, you didn't see as much because Trey Sermon just didn't get as much run. But another, high round guy there, 3rd round pick, Trey Sermon. Now you just think, okay, he's got all the talent in the world. He's a young guy, just turned 25. How can he do here in this system, with a full off season, OTAs, mini camp, training camp coming up here in a couple months? Like, what's he going to look like? But I think when you look at the roster overall, you'd say he's probably the most talented by I would say pretty far talent-wise, but also a guy that I think you feel like can really supplement Jonathan Taylor and can be the best kind of Zach Moss type of role that you had last year that could spell Taylor for a couple snaps and stuff like that. Potentially, if he needs to take on more, he can do that. You're hoping he can do that. So I would say right now, Zach Moss, if you're making me choose a depth chart tomorrow, I'd probably put Zach Moss as my RB2. But again, he's not going to just get it. He's going to have to earn that. And he's going to have to go up against, like I mentioned, guys like Tyler Goodson, Evan Hall, and potentially a couple other guys too. So I do think Trey Sermon has a really good shot to be RB2, but he's going to have to earn it, Derek.
Absolutely. But yeah, like you said with Trey Sermon, I mean, he's really a bruiser when it comes to his running style. Runs extremely hard, is not a small running back by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, when you look at the size of Trey Sermon, 6 foot, 215 pounds. I mean, he's definitely not a small guy. And like I said, his play style is try to run through you. So it's a great compliment to Jonathan Taylor. And you saw last year, I mean, again, albeit didn't get a lot of snaps because you had Zach Moss and Jonathan Taylor at that point. But, Trey Sermon had to go out there, and there were a lot of times where he felt comfortable. He looked comfortable behind that offensive line, especially in that Pittsburgh game. And that's not against some weak competition there. I mean, that's a Steelers defensive line and defensive front that has a lot of good dudes on it. And, for the offensive line and the scheme in which we run the football definitely opens a lot of things up for players like Trey Sermon. But again, he looked very comfortable, even bounced off a couple of guys to be able to move forward for extra yards, and that's a great compliment to Jonathan Taylor. Like you said, being able to take a couple snaps here and there from Jonathan Taylor to keep him fresher, I think definitely makes a lot of sense when you're talking about him as running back 2. But the running back 2, there's competition. And the guy right behind him is the guy that, again, was one of those draft picks from last year that unfortunately suffered a season-ending injury before his season even got started, really. And that is Evan Hall, the running back out of Northwestern, the 5'10", 210-pound running back who is mainly recognized for his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, was never really given much of a chance because of the injuries he sustained at the beginning of the year. But there's high hope for Evan Hall this year. What do you see Evan Hall's role being with this team this year, Cody?
Well, I feel like we've seen in the past with Shane Steichen, we've seen him kind of have, different variety of running backs, right? We saw that in Philadelphia. We've seen that even with the Chargers when he was over there. Like, we've seen them utilize different players in very unique ways. And so I'm curious what new element a healthy Evan Hall can bring, because you really didn't have that type of player last year on your roster. I guess you could probably say out of the guys, you'd probably say out of the running backs that were available, Tyler Goodson's probably the closest one to it. But Evan Hall's a guy at Northwestern that he held in a lot of passes in his career there. So I'm curious kind of what new elements he can bring out of the backfield from the passing game perspective, right? Because the Colts didn't target the running backs a whole lot last year in the passing game. So I'm curious kind of, do we see him get, more looks there? We obviously have seen in the past, albeit not the same system, with Nyheim Hines and kind of the role that he filled for a while for the Colts offense. So, like, could Evan Hall get some sort of role like that, where he can create some mismatches out of the backfield? So I'm very curious kind of what he looks like. Probably not the greatest guy running between the tackles. I think you'd probably give the nod to Trey Sermon there, but like, just more wrinkles in your offense. We talked about in, the one with Anthony Richardson, just how much that makes your offense so much less predictable. So like adding another, unpredictability with a player like Evan Hall out of the backfield, I think is just going to even help you out more in just the ways that you can attack down the field and in the passing game. So I'm just very curious kind of how that works out for Evan Hall and kind of what his role is with the Colts. And, do they utilize that, or is that more something that Shane Steichen's not really super interested in? And if they do, kind of how many snaps does Evan Hall kind of get in this offense with, a couple other guys that are definitely going to get a good majority of the snaps? So I don't know. He's kind of a wild card to me because he does have that kind of unique element out of all the running backs on the roster.
Yeah, his play style definitely going to be very, very interesting. And then last player that we have here is Tyler Goodson. A lot of people definitely will get on Tyler Goodson because obviously the last play of the season for the Indianapolis Colts was a failure of a play between Gardner Minshew and Tyler Goodson here. So I'm sure that there's a lot of bad memories when it comes to Colts fans and Tyler Goodson, but Tyler Goodson did handle the moment with a lot of class, and I respect that. But I definitely, again, Cody, think that Tyler Goodson, I mean, he's just like every other running back that you have moving into this year. I mean, it's funny because he only had 13 carries on the year. And again, he was the fourth running back on the roster for for part of the season. He didn't actually get activated on the roster until December because at that point, Zach Moss was having issues with his injury, and then of course Evan Hall being out. So Tyler Goodson was the third running back for the back half of the year, and then of course with the last few games of the year, with Zach Moss being out, Jonathan Taylor being out, and he had to go in there and he had to basically do whatever he could to try to get some things done. And he was again another running back that part of that Pittsburgh game that took over. Really, he had 11 carries in that game for 69 yards, so averaged over 6 yards a carry. And then he was actually this year, it's kind of funny because 13 carries on the year, obviously, but, averaged 6.7 yards per carry this last year, which was actually 40th best in all of the NFL, which is kind of funny when you look at it. But again, Tyler Goodson, another young player who, who really runs well behind this offensive line. And I think he's a great player to have as your fourth running back.
Yeah, like you said, it'll be overshadowed by, the infamous drop that happened there, or however you want to look at it, regardless of it, he'll be known for that, no question. But I did think as that running back 4, I mean, you could certainly do a lot worse than Tyler Goodson. Like you said, especially in that Pittsburgh game when he actually got carries, I thought he looked pretty good. So I'm totally fine having Tyler Goodson as that RB4 because I definitely think he can do some things. I mean, he is a little bit smaller. He's 5'9", so he's definitely a short guy, but he's almost 200 pounds. So he's kind of that short, stocky type of running back. So intrigued to see kind of what his role will be because I think he can, like I said, he can do a little bit of receiving out of the backfield too. So, like, what does that look like? And hopefully, obviously, he barely sees the field this year, but it's nice to know you have another potentially capable running back, that can run it like we saw in that Pittsburgh game when you need to and kind of close that game out. So I'd definitely love to see that, man, for the Colts to kind of have some depth there for Tyler Goodson. I mean, this dude's only 23 years old, too, so he's still a very young player. So, yeah, Tyler Goodson, for what it is, like, I'm totally fine with him as RB4, no question.
It'll be a great season with this running back group. You got a lot of different personalities in here, and you got a lot of different play styles. But one thing's for certain, you got a bunch of dogs in this room, no doubt about it. And hopefully, no major injuries this year amongst the group, and everyone stays healthy and gets a chance to show off what they're learning with this great offensive line, and having Anthony Richardson back. It'll be nice to see what they have. So that'll do it for this one, guys. Let us know your thoughts on the running back room for the Indianapolis Colts. Make sure to like the video. Be sure to comment. Be sure to subscribe. That'll do it for this one, guys. And as always, go Colts.